Welcome back on the SaferAfrica e-learning models. You are in model 5 of Safer Users, and we begin the second session about vulnerability. As you know, we have already on model 5, so we have already had 4 other models, and in model 5 you have 4 different sessions. The introduction session, and now we are in the second one, the vulnerability of. This session we will talk about what is vulnerability, what are we calling vulnerable road users, what are general problems of road users like visibility, fatigue and distraction, and what are some specific problems of road users in Africa. One of the main principles of sustainable road safety system, as we have seen in Model 1, is the fact that humans are very vulnerable. Our human body, although it is a magnificent and strong instrument, is at the same time very fragile. The impact of an accident on the human body depends on a lot of different aspects. The kind of crash, what part of the body was hit, the age of the person, the kind of object you hit, a soft surface or a solid surface, the crumble zone of the other object, and most of all, the speed at the time of the collision between the object and the human body. In this picture, you see the major injuries for different pedestrians, two-wheelers and car drivers and passengers with a severe accident. And you have an indication of what kind of accident is typical for that kind of injury. It is the kinetic energy revealed by the impact that has a crucial role, and its kinetic energy depends for the most part of the speed at the moment of impact. Intuitive, we all know that, and our body and mind are automatically warn us for this kind of danger. Jumping out of a tree, for example, from the first branch at 1 meter height does not scare us. But when we are at a higher branch, let's say 2.5 meters, normally our body will resist. It has nothing to do with the height on itself, but with the fall velocity that results in another kinetic energy when reaching the ground. The same happens when a good friend will give you a friendly stroke at your cheek, compared with the situation that the boxer will give you a left uppercut. It's the difference in speed of the arm movement that will give you a gently feeling or a strong dizziness. Because in traffic the velocity is far most higher than walking speed, every road user is in one sense or another vulnerable. But there's a difference, because some road users have such a speed that they can easily harm or other road users. Some road users, as pedestrians and bicycle riders, have in general a speed that makes it difficult to harm seriously other users. But they themselves are easily harmed by more motorized users. That's why in some literature and research, only pedestrians and cyclists are seen as vulnerable road users. We prefer to use the term vulnerable road users in the same way as Wichmann and Arts in their work in 2006 on advancing sustainable safety. Their first criteria has to do with being unprotected, which leads us to the subdivisions by the mode of transport, for example, pedestrians, cyclists and motorcyclists. A second criteria is about incapacity, which can lead us to a subdivision by age, children, novice drivers. They have a certain level of task incapability, but also elderly persons and disabled persons have a certain level of physical vulnerability. Fatality rate for vulnerable road users differs from country to country. The World Health Organization estimated that in 2010 Worldwide, 1 in 5 road fatalities concerns pedestrians, and also 1 in 5 is a motorized 2 or 3-wheeler. For the African continent, based on 24 African countries, the part of pedestrians in fatal accidents is much higher, 39%, and motorized 2-wheelers take only 7%. Concerning motorized 2 or 3-wheelers, we have to notice that there is a big difference between low and middle income countries. In low income countries, 2-wheelers are more present in the fatalities, but for pedestrians there is no such a big difference. Let us look a bit closer to the different kind of vulnerable road users we mentioned before, and especially to the group of children. First, a few comments. The time that we consider children as mini adults is already far behind us, but still we do not always recognize their typical characteristics and their impact on road safety. School children have not the same skills and competences as adults to make an adequate judgment in a traffic situation. Visibility is the most important sense that we need in traffic. Because of their small size, children cannot oversee everything in a traffic situation. They can't look through or over a car like adults, and often there are all kinds of obstacles that impede a good overview. The same restriction for their shape means that they have a different depth perspective, which makes it more difficult to estimate distance. As an adult, we have also a very wide field of vision. At a standstill, we easily survive an image of 180 degrees without having to turn our heads around. This is much more limited in children. Although children's hearing receives all the sounds, it is often difficult for them to locate the source of these sounds. The honking of a car is recognized, but where does the car come from? The attention is still very fragmented until the age of 8 years. One can hardly keep many different elements at the same time in the attention span. They jump from image to image. The most striking thing, like an ice cream cart, a parent, friend or a dog, get all the attention, and the edge phenomena such as traffic falls away. A lot of attention is still required for movement itself. Obstacles and difficult thresholds in traffic often cause young children to lose their balance. Children also learn cycling at this age. Certainly in the initial period, all those difficult movements, keeping balance, steering, pedaling, and looking at the same time, braking, requires a lot of practice and attention. Children can therefore move in an unexpected direction quite quickly, or have no eye for the other traffic at all. In general, it can therefore be stated that children under 10 years of age can never cycle alone in traffic. The actions of children are often impulsive in nature. They go for it and afterwards they think about it. This gives typical difficulties in traffic, like for example, behind the ball there comes a child. As a parent, never wait for your child on the other side of the street. If a school bus stops, it's guaranteed that the child crosses the street without looking properly to traffic. There is often a whole difference between the moment that children are alone and the moment they are in a group. As a part of a peer group, their attention is not or insufficiently on traffic. The focus at that time is on being together, on the discussion they have, on the fun they have. The pressure of the group therefore plays an important role at the moment when a decision has to be made. Do I still decide whether or not to do so? Do I pass the red light or shall I wait? Children often follow the group at those times, even when they know it's unsafe. The proportion of road fatalities in the group of children from age 5 to 14 is different in low versus high income countries. Several reasons can explain the difference. In low income countries, the proportion of pedestrians and motorized two-wheelers are higher than in high income countries, and thus there are more vulnerable road users. A study of Jacobs and Aaron in Botswana in 2000 stated that 30% of the pedestrians casualties were younger than 16 years old. A second important group of vulnerable road users, even they are motorized, is the novice drivers. In most countries all over the world, novice drivers under the age of 25 account for the largest share of road crashes and fatalities. In European countries, the proportion of fatalities for young drivers is 2 to 3 times higher than their share in the total population. Traffic crashes are the single greatest killer of those aged 14 to 24 in OECD countries. We found no specific figure for African countries. The World Health Organization general information with very large age groups. Concerning low-income countries, the most vulnerable age group is situated a little bit higher, between 30 and 44 years old. There is no further distribution concerning the mode of transport. The graphic you see is the fatality rates in the sub-Saharan Africa. And you see a big difference between the countries in Central Sub-Saharan Africa and all the other countries in that region. Let's take some moments to go back in your memory when you were a novice driver, 18 years old, for example. Do you still remember the things you did at that time? What kind of a vehicle you were driving? How was your behavior at that time? Did you make many mistakes or violations? Try to remember them, or try to remember the reactions of your peers. What makes young drivers a bigger risk in traffic? So stop the video, write down all the possible things you can imagine. And of course, don't forget to restart the video afterwards. Several factors play a role in the overrepresentation of young drivers in crashes. Maybe the things you found can also be arranged in these 3 big categories: on physical developments, cognitive skills, and social context or personality. Here we can give you only a short indication of each of these factors, and if you want further details, please go to the Dakota study that could be found on the European website. The physiological development has to do with 2 things. First of all, the development of the brains, and especially the prefrontal lobe of the brain. This part of the brain is responsible for most of the more complex executive functions as impulse control, adaptation of current behavior, making decisions, etc. The full development of this cortex happens between the age of 21 and 25 and is a little behind the brain structures that are responsible for more affective reactions. So emotions become first instead of thinking. Also, during adolescence, hormonal changes influences the behavior. So they are more eager to look for sensation, for thrill-seeking experience, and so on. Driving skills has a lot to do with exercise and experience. People have to make a lot of exercise before some skills are really automatized. And automatic behavior is the basis of driving, because when you don't have put your attention on the practical skills, you can look out for more important competences like hazard perception, scanning the whole environment, and so on. And last but not least, peers are very influencing on have a very big influence on what you are doing while driving. If they ask to go a little bit further, or they say you have to be a lucky one, you have to be a very fast one, maybe you can change your way of behavior at that time. So what we have seen until now, we have spoken about vulnerable road users. We have talked about the definitions about being unprotected or having some incapacity to have good behavior in traffic. We talked about specific groups, children and novice drivings, in real general ideas. Secondly, what we can say about vulnerability is road users have specific problems in traffic. I have to do with they make errors. People make errors. People are not ideal. They make mistakes, and you have two kinds of errors. You can say unintentional errors. Example: drowsiness, fatigue, lack of attention. That's more unintentional errors or mistakes. Intentional errors are more I'm distracting, I'm looking for my phone, I'm speeding, I'm driving while intoxicated. That are more excessive and intentional behaviors and errors or mistakes. But in general, the first, we're going to talk about fatigue a little bit and distraction, but in general, of course, we're going to talk about what we call visibility. Are we visible? Talking about visibility, let's show to this video with three pedestrians. They are running through the streets and I am following them with my car. At 20 meters, one is already disappearing. 50 meters, the secondly is disappearing. But the other one with his fluo vest is still visible at 150 meters from my car. With a little help of Shakespeare, we could say to see or to be seen, that is the question. Indeed, visual perception is in all its dimensions is crucial for safe driving. Most of the information we need as a road user is visual in nature. Perception of visual information consists of three components: pure visibility, conspicuousness, and recognizability. Visibility poor is about the simple question, can it be seen? In traffic, it is important to see objects from a certain distance, depending on your speed. When you drive on a highway at 90 kilometers an hour, you will pass in 1 second already 24 meters, and your braking distance is around 40 meters. So you need to see everything from a distance of 65 meters. It's also some of the signs and indication and other users can be hidden behind trees, buildings, or parked cars, as we have seen with the children. And also darkness and lightness is a very important factor in traffic. Darkness is more general, also heavy rain, sandstorm, and also the sun and the lights of other cars can increase the capacity to see what is happening. Conspicuousness is about not only that the information must be visible, but it must also attract the attention. Certainly, when it is important information you want to give to the road users. Three things are in that kind of context important. First of all, does it attract attention or not? Or maybe you have too many clues and you lost the attention of the important one. Or you have, besides the road, such an impact of very good and expressive things that they attract all the attention, but their information has nothing to do with traffic, of course. And the last one is recognizability. Specific colors The object must be recognized by the road users as a special clue so that it's easier to adopt his behavior when he knows its meaning and what could be happening. If you see the first curve here, when you're coming on with the car, you have the impression that the road is going straight ahead and there is no curve because the trees and the bushes in the neighborhood indicates that the road is much farther. So if you want to make it recognizable for the driver, you must make bushes a little bit closer to the road. And the other idea is a little bit the same because there is a gap between two bushes in the curve, and also you can have the impression that the way is carry on, and you have to put some indication of that. These two small examples to say what could be recognizability in road infrastructure. Certainly you found more information on the other sessions or the other. So again, let us take some moments to think on possible ways to solve problems about visibility. Don't look for extraordinary solutions, think basically. Can you also indicate in which degree this is a problem in your country, in your region? So stop again the video, write down all the possible things you can imagine, and don't forget to restart the video afterwards. Thank you for your exercise. We're going not further in this theme because it takes too much time, but you can find a supplement little explanation, little presentation of some solutions about visibility. Another problem is fatigue and sleepiness behind the wheel, which are certainly a major problem in many countries and regions. In this document, we will use the term fatigue for these two closely related phenomena, namely tiredness, which is a state of impaired alertness resulting in reduced capacity and motivation to act, and fatigue as a physical and a mental or psychological aspect. In general, there are 5 general causes to fatigue: to spend time on a task or a job, sleep deprivation, biorhythm, monotony of the task, and individual characteristics, including medical condition and the use of alcohol and drugs and medicines. Fatigue behind the wheel is effects including slower reaction time, decreased alertness, decreased levels of information processing, and worse steering. Determining the share of fatigue as a cause of road accidents is not an easy thing. Scientific estimates based on in-depth research on road accidents indicate that about 10 to 15% of road accidents are related to fatigue. A white paper published in 2013 about drowsiness in traffic, written by the European sleep and fatigue experts, estimates that drowsiness plays a role in about 20 to 25% of all road accidents in Europe. Measures against fatigue in traffic can focus on drivers, enterprises, on roads and on vehicles. Drivers can be made more aware about the dangers of tired driving and the best counteractions through campaigns. Transportation and enterprise can implement a policy to combat fatigue. The roads can be equipped with markers which provide audio-tactile feedback when they are being driven on, and can also be equipped with shoulder safeguards or obstacle-free zones to reduce the effect of accidents linked to fatigue. Alongside motorways, safe resting places can be installed so that drivers have the opportunity to stop in time and to rest. Finally, fatigue can be further controlled by an improvement in the driving and resting time legislation. In Africa, we found in Morocco for truck drivers, bus drivers, and taxi drivers. And when we see what they indicate on a survey, a lot of them have problems with fatigue or drowsiness during driving. And when we see the Epworth score, what indicate the problems with sleeping, they have a very high score, of course. A lot of them have a very high score. Distraction is another problem, which we indicate two different kinds of elements. Inattention, what is indeed a general state of lower attention, but you are concerning about what's happening around you, but in a lower energy phase. Distraction is another thing. You are very focused, but on an issue that has nothing to do with the original task. There are a number of studies that can be found on distraction in traffic, and then primarily in connection with making a telephone call while driving. Yet prevalence figures are scarce. Studies show that drivers spend 25% to 30% being engaged in distracting activities while they are driving. A causal connection between distraction and road casualties is difficult to determine. It is estimated that distraction plays a role in 5 to 25% of road casualties. Advertising boards next to the road could also be a source of distraction, especially if they contain moving images placed in the center of the vision range or at eye level and contain emotional charged messages. Reaction time is longer. The driver often looks away from the road and less dangers and traffic signs are noticed. The reaction time to traffic signs is also slower, and the driver is less able to stay stable. Take again some moments to think on the typical problems concerning road users in your country. Besides the previous problems with behaviors of circumstances, which behavior or circumstances can lead to road safety conflicts are present in your country or in your region? Can you also indicate in which degree this is a problem? Think on the different kinds of road users. You have pedestrians, you have riders, you have drivers. Think also about rural and urban situations. So stop again the video, write some possible things you can imagine. What are the problems of road users in your country? And don't forget to restart the video afterwards. The World Health Organization Global Status Report on Road Safety identified different road users related risk factors that they describe as key for road safety. There are speed or speeding, drink driving, and failure to use helmets, seat belts, and child restraints. They also class drug driving and the use of mobile phones while driving as emergency risk factors. But these are not the only ones and their importance can differ from country to country. The mix and volume of traffic in a country also influence this risk and the consequences of certain types of behavior, for example, speeding or not wearing seat belts or helmets. Maybe you can compare this list with what you have found for your country or for your region. Some examples of problems that are more common in many African countries are put here on this slide. It's about the enormous presence of motorized two-wheelers not wearing helmets and sometimes overloaded. In Burkina Faso, a survey was done about the reason why people did not wear or not wear the helmet on a motorbike. It was amazing that a lot of people don't think about safety. Maybe you recognize some of the other things that you have mentioned also in your list you have made in the exercise. So let us summarize what we have seen in this second session for road users. First of all road users are vulnerable. Our body is very fragile. Speed is the most important factor concerning the severity of injuries, so traffic calming, especially where a lot of different kinds of road users come together, is very necessary. Road users differ in their vulnerability on basis of their protection and their competences. In low-income countries, two-wheelers are more present in fatalities compared with middle-income countries, and pedestrians are more present compared with high-income countries. Children need special protection. Their competences and skills are not yet developed enough to cope with the traffic environment. Every country, every culture has its own specific problems and habitudes that influence road behavior. Nevertheless, there are some worldwide universal road safety problems like speeding, driving under the influence, visibility, failure to use the necessary protections like helmets, safety belts, and so on. It is important to identify the specific behaviors and the factors that influence these behaviors. So convictions, cultural aspects, skills, competences before you start any initiative. The World Health Organization has published several manuals on this kind of topic. These are some examples, and with the link you can find them and you can open them. Your attention, and don't forget to download the PDF of this presentation from the website and to look at it more closely. The next session in a few days will be given on education for road safety users. Thank you very much.